The Pentagon wants to spend $25 billion this year and potentially up to $1 trillion on the so-called Golden Dome missile defense system. It's supposed to stop hundreds of missiles, thousands of decoys, and even hypersonic glide vehicles at once. But here's the catch. The physics behind this system might make it impossible to actually work. Senator Kelly isn't holding back, and neither should we. Let's break it down.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I want to talk about the proposed Golden Dome missile defense system. There's a request to spend $25 billion in this year alone. First of all, is this system designed to intercept a full salvo attack?
Senator, it's a multi-layer system that would include different types of salvos. Obviously,
so it's not just Rogue Nation. Okay.
Well, it's meant to. Yes, it's not meant to be just one nation. It could be utilized in
against Russia
scenarios.
or China, full salvo. So, what kind of reliability are you aiming to build into the system? Are we looking for something like 4 nines on intercept success? 99.99% reliability.
Obviously, you seek the highest possible. You begin with what you have and integrating those C2 networks and sensors, building up capabilities that are existing with an eye toward future capabilities that can come online as quickly as possible, not just ground-based, but space-based.
So against future capability too. So do you believe that we can build a system that can intercept all incoming threats? You think we could build that system? This is a very hard physics problem.
You would know as well as anybody, sir, how difficult this problem is, and that's why we put our best people on it. We think the American people deserve it.
So let me tell you what I think we're facing here. You're talking about hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, varying trajectories, MIRVs, so multiple reentry vehicles, thousands of decoys, hypersonic glide vehicles, all at once. And considering what the future threat might be, it might even be more complicated than that. And you're proposing spending not just $25 billion, but upwards of, I think CBO estimated this at least $500 billion, other estimates, $1 trillion. I am all for having a system that would work. I am not sure that the physics can get there on this. It's incredibly complicated. So I want to get to another issue that you're facing here. How much of the staff of the Office of the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation did you cut?
After collaboration, sir, with the service departments, the Joint Staff, and others, we identified that as a place where there were redundancies and multiple additional layers that were unnecessary.
I'll tell you what you cut. You cut 74%.
Most of it. That's what I was going to say.
Most of it. And was your decision to cut more than half of the Pentagon's testing and evaluation office staff driven in part by concerns about the office's plan to oversee testing of Golden Dome?
The concerns were not specific to Golden Dome, sir. It was years and years of delays unnecessarily based on redundancies in the decision-making process that the services, COCOMs, and the Joint Staff, together with OSD, identified as a logjam that was not helping the process.
To get the reliability we would need, you need something that's at 4 nines, 99.99% reliability, with all these challenges. And you cut the staff of the people who are going to make sure this thing works before we make it operational, before we give it to the warfighters. You got to go back and take a look at this. But I also strongly encourage you to put together before we spend $25 billion or $175 billion or $563 billion or $1 trillion, put together a group of people to figure out if the physics will work. You could go down a road here and spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of the taxpayer money, get to the end, and we have a system that is not functional. That very well could happen. And you're doing this just because the president, and I understand your role as the Secretary of Defense. You got to execute what the president says. But this idea, might not be fully baked. And you can get in front of it now and figure out and and find out if you put the right physicists on this. And I'm not saying go to the big defense contractors. Going to scientists, and I know there's a questionable relationship with this administration and scientists, but go to some scientists, figure out what we would have to do to build a system, and then make smart decisions before we spend hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Senator, we're doing that, leveraging existing technologies and not premising the project on aspirational technologies, what we can actually do, and would welcome.
Well, $25 billion in the first year is a lot of money. That's more than just figuring out if we have the ability to build a system that can handle a full salvo threat, hypersonic glide vehicles, MERS, thousands of decoys. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Senator Kelly. Senator Sheehy.
When you hear Golden Dome missile defense system, you might imagine an impenetrable shield protecting America from every possible missile threat. But the reality? It's far more complicated and far more expensive than most people realize. Senator Kelly doesn't hold back. She points out that the Pentagon is asking for $25 billion this year alone for a system that's supposed to stop not just one missile, but potentially hundreds of ICBMs launched simultaneously, complete with multiple re-entry vehicles, thousands of decoys, and hypersonic glide vehicles. And here's the kicker. The CBO estimates the full project could eventually cost $500 billion, or even $1 trillion. Now, Secretary Hegseth assures everyone that the system will aim for 99.99% reliability. Sounds impressive, but Senator Kelly knows something Hegseth admits only quietly. This is a very hard physics problem. Simply put, the laws of physics might not cooperate with our ambitions or our budgets. Kelly presses further, pointing out that the Pentagon cut most of the staff at the office responsible for testing and evaluation, the very people who would ensure the system actually works before it's given to warfighters. She warns that without proper testing, the U.S. could spend hundreds of billions on a system that doesn't function. And this isn't about political gamesmanship. Kelly isn't saying, don't defend the nation. She's saying, let's make sure it actually works before we pour $1 trillion into it. In other words, let's put the right physicists and scientists, not just defense contractors, on the problem. This exchange is a stark reminder. In government, the biggest risks aren't always foreign. They're often financial and technical. When you're talking trillions of taxpayer dollars, you want certainty, not just ambition. At Left Lens, we believe Americans deserve answers and accountability. Share this video, comment your thoughts, and join the conversation. Don't let hundreds of billions slip through our fingers on a system that may never work. Stay informed, demand transparency, and hold decision makers accountable. Left Lens has you covered.